What if you could scale your agency to 30K months, cut your workload by 80%, and never hire an employee? Pia Silva is here to share her no BS formula for making that happen. Welcome back. If you are new here, I am Jen Vasquez, and I help hyper busy female service providers simplify their marketing with Pinterest so that you can book more clients, boost your income, and make a bigger impact. And on this podcast, I am so honored to be able to have marketing experts come in and interview them so that we can get you tips and actionable tips to be able to help you master marketing without the overwhelm. If that sounds like your vibe, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast or check us out on YouTube. Today, I am so excited to be chatting with Pia Silva. Pia is a branding strategist, author, and coach who helps small business branding agencies scale their 30K months while working less without hiring a team and as a partner at Worst of All. That's cute. That's really cute.
Worst of all design.
That
Yep.
is the cutest thing ever. Sorry. As a partner at Worst of All Designs and founder of No BS Agency Mastery, she is on a mission to simplify success for agency owners. Pia is also the author of Badass Your Brand and the host of the top-rated No BS Agency podcast. Her expertise has been featured on MSNBC and Entrepreneur Magazine. Welcome, Pia.
Thank you so much, Jen. Great to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. A lot of people are eager to hear this, I'm sure. I always love to start with this question. Like, how did you get from out of high school to this job right now? Typically, it's like a windy road, but tell us a little bit about what came before what you're doing now.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I knew about what I wanted to do in my career was when I was growing up was that I didn't want to work for anyone. So,
You knew
what
that.
do you do? I knew that from a very early age. I got that message ingrained in me by my dad. So I tried a lot of things out of college. The one official job I ever had was bartending, and bartending facilitated being able to try lots of things, do gig type of work a lot to figure it out. I was a real estate agent for 2 years. That was a hard 2 years in New York City. And I did some random gig stuff. I helped my friend's friend open a coffee shop pizzeria once. I just kind of was like a budding consultant until I met my now husband, who was an artist. You can see that we're in his art studio, and a graphic designer. And at a certain point, we were engaged at the time. I said, you know what? You're very talented at the design, not so great at the client management, invoicing, all that stuff. So why don't I take over that and let's do this together, and let me go find the clients and you just do your brilliant stuff. And that's how we started, and how it evolved. Obviously, it's a longer story, but how it evolved into a branding agency. And now this is because just by boots on the ground trying to build my own business, I quickly learned how important branding was. I quickly learned how much more valuable it was than design. And I experienced it for my own business, and then I experienced it for other people's businesses. And so it all happened very organically.
I love that. I love that. And I love not everyone can work with their husband. I have. And as long as there's sort of like boundaries in place, it is not going to ruin your marriage. I always say that because a lot of people are like, oh, I could never work with my husband. I'm like, no worries, but I can, because I could just give him a look and he knows exactly what I need him to do.
It does cut down on the back and forth when you kind
Yes.
of read each other's minds and projects. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. What inspired you to create the badass brands without BS? And tell us a little bit about that approach.
So, as you mentioned, my agency is called Worst of All Design. So,
Love
where
that
did that
name.
come from? So, it was actually my married name, and my husband's last name is Wasterval, Dutch. And Worst of All was kind of his like nickname in college, right? So,
That's
like
hilarious.
Stoner, see you in Boulder. So, it was always the name. It was always going to be that name. So I kind of inherited this name. But what was fun about it is that at first it was really hard because I was going to B&I groups trying to find business. I had no idea what I was doing. And then I also had to stand up and say worst of all design and have a bunch of suits look at me and go, I don't get it. Why? Okay. So you can picture that. That was the
I
beginning.
thought it was just facetious, but it actually has a connection, which is
Oh
kind
yeah.
of cool.
Well, it had a genuine origin, but what happened that I could never have anticipated was that over time, we really grew into the name because what do you want to tell people as a branding agency that you do? You want to tell them that you help people stand out. Well, what is a better way to demonstrate that you know how to stand out without saying what everyone else says? Which, by the way, if your branding agency is saying, I help you stand out, you're really just saying the exact opposite of what you do because everyone is saying that, right? So, to worst of all, really became like we're demonstrating that we know how to think outside the box. I used to say,
Yes.
if you say you think outside the box, you don't think outside the box.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love
So
that.
that became ended up becoming a lot of my like networking talk too, right? Because this happened again organically, just talking to so many people about this. It evolved into, well, worst of all, design. We create badass brands without the BS. This is a very, especially in 2013, it's less so now because
Yeah,
the world has
2013, it
changed.
would have been a shock, I'm sure,
In
and
20 in
and cool.
2013, yeah. In 2013, when I spoke at the Chamber of Commerce and I said badass brands, literally people said to me after, like, I don't think you can say that here, which is shocking.
I just did.
I just, like, I just did. They're like, I think it's inappropriate. I was like,
Oh
and
gosh.
then and then I remember somebody else said to that person, that's kind of her whole point,
So
is
they
that
got
she's
it. They
making a
actually
statement.
got
So they got it. Yep.
it.
And so, badass brands, I also developed a definition for that too, because a lot of people were trying to define branding. Branding is such an elusive idea. Nobody quite understands it. You know it when you see it. And so I said, look, forget branding. I'm going to tell you what badass brands do. Badass brands do two things. One, they magnetically attract and repel. You have to be able to repel.
Hallelujah, because everyone's fearful of repelling. I love it. You don't love me,
Mhm.
move on. I need more time with other people.
Yes. And I want you can only attract people with a strong vibe if you're willing to repel. So you don't have a badass brand if you don't repel and attract. And then the second characteristic is you are able to charge more than the competition and still win the business. So I define a badass brand as having those two.
That is the best definition I've heard in a while.
Thank
That's really
you.
good. So, scaling a business without hiring employees is a super big bold move.
Mhm.
Not what
Mhm.
everyone's talking about. Oh, let's grow a team, let's do this. So, how do you help agency owners achieve this while growing their revenue?
So what I now work with 1 to 2 person branding agencies, super niche, and I teach them the model that me and Steve developed inside Worst of All Design. So really quickly, the first 3 years of our business, we were building our business the way everybody around me was doing it. I was like learning on the job. So I was actually just kind of copying what other small agencies were doing that I was networking with. And surprise, surprise, we ended up in debt. We were working all the time. We had 2 employees. It was a mess. We were working so much, but we couldn't get our head above water. And we had to let the employees go. And at that time, we had been selling this other service, kind of like a back pocket offer for people who couldn't afford us. This $3,000 1 day, like work with us for a day, get as much work as you can, and be done. And at this critical juncture in our business, I looked at that $3,000 1 day and I said, oh my gosh, if we just did $3,000 1 days, just me and you, we don't need these $30,000 projects. These $30,000 projects take us months and months and months, so much headache. And even though we're selling some of them, we're working all the time and we're in debt. So I'm not exaggerating when I say within months, we had paid off the debt and we're in the green because these were selling like hotcakes. So to bring it back to how do you scale without employees? Well,
Mhm.
you got to look at the profitability of your offer instead of just looking at the revenue. I was
The bottom
chasing this
line. Yeah,
top
you
line. Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So, as a service business, your profitability is going to be based on how much can I charge for how much time I spend, and how can I minimize the time I spend and maximize the price that I charge. And so, if you don't want employees, I mean, I didn't want employees at the time,
Yeah.
but all you have
Well,
to do
especially
is be
after that,
conscious.
because that was like a bad taste in your mouth. Like going through that, it probably was
Yes.
like, I don't ever want that again.
I felt right now I have employees, but at the time I
Totally
thought I
different.
never want that again. And I didn't know why it didn't work. And now I can see all these things that were wrong, including that I had no business managing people. I didn't know what I didn't know about. I just didn't know anything about it. I had never managed anybody. So I was just doing it all wrong. But what I found was that we could, Steve and I together, but I've also done this with lots of people who are just one person.
Yeah.
If you have really good processes, you can end up making quite a bit of money if your processes are really tight so that you're managing the time that you're delivering in. And if you get a process that's repeatable, that's reliable, and you have confidence in it, you can raise your rates pretty high.
Yes, I will agree with that. And we do that at my agency. Also do Pinterest management, but my
Mhm.
Pinterest VIP day is the one that everyone loves because businesses might have a VA who's going to be doing the pinning, but they need to understand and create a strategy for Pinterest. And so this way they get the strategy for it. And we're teaching the VA on this all day, 1 day situation. And then they're off on their own and they can come back for, one offs if they need to update it or whatever. But we love it.
I love I
It's my
love that you do
favorite.
it like that.
It's my
Yeah, that's
favorite.
brilliant.
Yeah, it is my favorite. It's my favorite because I get to, like, take my brain off and give it to them, but in the way that the time that they have to spend on Pinterest and in the way they want to work. I love it. Why is learning to say no such a powerful tool for business success, and how can entrepreneurs implement this in their client strategy? I love this. I've been doing this lately, and it's makes me happy.
Oh man, I wrote an article like 10 years ago with a photo that we made of a needle point that says the customer is never right. Because I think what we've been trained to think is that the customer is always right. You do whatever the customer says. But what I have found is that when the customer is telling you is they're leading the way, they're doing that partially because they have lost trust in you and you are now not leading the way. So you can't be hired and followed as an expert if you are looking at the client as having all the answers. People will pay you and they'll have the answers and direct you, but they won't pay you the big bucks. People pay more for you to tell them the answers. So, therefore, we want to say no in the beginning to clients that aren't a good fit for us. And then
Correct.
we want to say no throughout the process anytime the client is trying to take the project off course. And I think a lot of times, especially in the creative industries, and especially a lot of us women, but men too, are very people pleasing. We want the person to like us. So they tell us, oh, it should be this, it should be that. And we acquiesce because we want them to be happy. But my position is you're not being hired to make the person happy. You're being hired to get them to their goal. You're being
Yes.
hired to deliver value. And actually, a lot of the time, saying no to the client that's not going to help you get your goal is why they paid you the big bucks.
Yes. 100% agree with that. And I feel like new businesses are always very scared of saying no, right? It's money coming into the company. You will always regret it. If there's a red flag or multiple red flags, I'm just saying this from experience, and you bring them on, you will regret it. So trust your instincts. And then in terms of clients, I don't like to say the word no, but I like to find out why they're even talking about it. Because half the
Mhm.
time, what they're asking for is the solution that they think they want. But again, like you said, it doesn't align with their goals. And what they really want is they maybe don't understand what's going on. They need more detail, or they need to be told why what you're doing is the way to accomplish what they want. So, them asking a question or asking you to do something, it doesn't mean you need to say yes and you need to do it. You need to consider for them with your expert hat on if that's the right move for them and be able to explain that in a very nice way.
Very, very well said. Yes. I obviously speak about it with a
Yes,
lot of enthusiasm here, but it is an art
it is.
to get to the bottom of why somebody might have a, you know, have a revision that is totally off course. It's an art to understand them, make them feel heard, and redirect them to what they actually need.
Yes, it is definitely an art. And it's scary to have those conversations because you're considering that revenue. And I mean, I get it from years ago. I totally get it. But I think also Nate saying no when you're in business is a luxury that you don't have in corporate. It was
Exactly
the thing
true.
that attracted me to work for myself was it's scary, of course, making all those decisions, but
Mhm.
especially in corporate, when I knew something was not going to work and we had to let it play out, and then you can't say, I told you so, and then go and fix what they broke. Right. So that is a luxury that you have as an entrepreneur. Please embrace that. No, it's glorious.
Well, not just that, but to your earlier point, when you take a client that you maybe aren't as well equipped to work with because they're not really your ideal client, you're going to regret it later because you're going to spend so much more time on those projects. Anytime I've taken a client that's outside my zone of genius, I have to spend so much more time dealing with it, figuring things out, altering my process. It doesn't end up being profitable, which is what we were talking about earlier, is what you need to be focusing on
Which
profitability.
is why I focus on service providers with Pinterest and not products, because I know service providers. And
Me
so
too.
and it's a no-brainer for me. The work is easy and enjoyable for me, not so much when it's in the product side. Can you break down the 50-25-25 formula and explain why it's critical for achieving both profit as well as freedom?
Yeah, great question. So this is a formula that I developed when I was writing my book. It's called the 50-25-25 rule to profit and freedom. And I'm a numbers person and I needed a way to figure out how I was going to make the money that I needed to make. And this happened right after we got out of debt. All of a sudden, we were making lots of money, but I was still really stressed out and we were working all the time. So then I said, okay, now that we've figured some of this out, let me step back. How much money do we actually need? Like, what am I really trying to make here instead of just as much as possible, which you
Correct.
never get to as much as possible. So I sat down and I said, well, what do we need to live? How much does our business cost? And how much do we need on top to pay taxes? What's that total number? So the formula is you got to figure out that top number that includes all of your expenses, business and personal, and taxes. And then you want to be able to make that amount of money working with clients 50% of your time, your working time or less, which comes out to 80 hours a month
Ish.
or
Yeah.
less. And that gives you another 80 hours or like 2 weeks, you could say, available. And ideally, you would spend one of those weeks working on your business full time, and the other week is flexible time. So either the other week is free time to go on vacation or work on your other projects, or at certain points in your business, I certainly did this in the beginning. I always reinvested that also into my business. So I spent like, you know, except for the times I would take vacation, a lot of time I would spend 50% of my time working on my business because I wanted to get where I was trying to go sooner. And so I find that just having this really clear formula allows you to figure out, okay, this is what I need to charge to have a business that gives me both freedom and the profit that I need. And if you're not close to that number yet, that's okay. It's so
A
much
nice
easier
goal.
to to build up to a very clear and simple, this is the price I need to charge based on this amount number of hours that I'm working, instead of I just need to raise my prices. It also ties your pricing to a tangible reason, as
Mhm.
opposed so that when somebody
Yes.
says this is not, you know, oh, this is too much, you can kind of stand in your confidence. Like, this is the price I need to charge for my business to be profitable. So it's not too much. It's just you're not the right client.
Yeah, you're in business to make money. You're not in business to help everyone. Of course, that might be our passion, that might be what we enjoy, that might be what we love, but you're in business to make money to live. So, and I always will throw in there too, you need an oh shit account. Every business, every business owner needs an oh shit account. If you didn't quite figure out the taxes properly, or didn't hire someone like you should have, or you're sick for whatever reason for a month, like going back to COVID times, like whatever it is, you need an oh shit account. Everybody needs one when you're an entrepreneur.
Well, this may be controversial,
Ooh,
but as much as as I agree with you 100%, and certainly having that oh shit account in cash is ideal. But I also think anytime you're in a financially stable position, you should be building an oh shit account in credit too. So I am a big
yes.
proponent of opening interest-free credit cards and using those and building, because you can't open hundreds of thousands of dollars of credit all at once. And you certainly can't open credit cards when you're in a bad financial position. So the best time to try to access more available money and capital is when you don't need it. So
Oh,
I'm such
so
a proponent of
smart.
having that. Yeah.
So
And I know a
smart.
lot of people are nervous. Like a lot of people come with baggage about credit. And
Mhm.
what's really interesting when I tell people to do this is they get all scared about, well, I don't use credit cards and all that. I said, I didn't say you had to use it. I said you had to open it. I didn't
No,
say max out your
correct.
credit cards, just have them, because that's your buffer. That is like
Yes.
that lengthens your buffer. You can have the oh shit account and the credit
Yeah.
available. And then you don't have to stress so much because people are so stressed from month to month. And I just think it's unnecessary.
Yes, and I feel like the economy right now, at least in the United States, and just having a presidential election, like that has thrown fear everywhere. So many agency owners or solopreneurs are didn't have as great of a year as we all thought we were. So, and then there's others, like my business actually grew, which is amazing, but I feel like you having that credit for the times when something wild happens, like we experienced in 2020, is probably very smart. Very smart. What are the most common mistakes that you have found agency owners make when it comes to pitching, pricing, and selling?
Oh my goodness, so many mistakes. The biggest mistake, the biggest mistake I think people make in pitching is writing free custom proposals. As a small business, I think that it starts the relationship off with the wrong power dynamics. So somebody, and it's what everybody does.
Yeah.
So somebody wants to possibly hire you and you have a free conversation, maybe you have another meeting, then the designer or the service provider goes back and writes this custom proposal, and then it's just they do all this work and it's in the client's hands, and then that client could never contact you again. And
And
I've
it
definitely had that
happens.
happen
Mhm.
many times.
Mm.
So you just all that time is just out the window. So what I recommend instead is actually selling that first step. It's not selling a proposal, it's selling a more in-depth high value experience. But what I find that it does is it shortens the sales process significantly. I mean, you can sell this in 15 minutes, and money exchanges hands. So the advice that you give them is going to be valued more,
Mhm.
and that's going to position you as an authority, and you're going to have actual time available to truly diagnose their challenges and give them a thoughtful solution that doesn't feel like a pitch because they paid for it, and they're so much more likely to upsell into much higher price packages. I have sold people into packages that were twice the budget that they had once they understood why they needed it.
So,
Um,
oh my gosh, so this really intrigues me. Can you dive deeper? It's not a proposal, so give me more
yeah.
details because
So
that's very exciting.
yeah. So I call it a lead product. My lead product is called a brand shrink. And I've installed this in all kinds of service businesses. So it is an easy to buy, no brainer priced product, basically. The client, if they're a good fit and they have a problem that you can solve, you sell them. This is the first step. You interview them for usually it's like an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then you uncover, where are they in their business right now? What are their goals? And your job is to tell them, based on where you are and where you want to go, this is exactly what you need to do to get there. So then the
Mm.
deliverable is a written brief that is clearly articulating this is exactly what you need to do. And what I like about it is the way that I position it is this thing is valuable on its own. Like you could just
Yes.
take this and go do it yourself.
Or hire
Or
someone
at
else
the
to go do it if you want.
or hire someone if you want.
But now
But
you've
by the
earned their
time they've
trust.
gone exactly, you've earned their trust. And at the end of the document, you've written this whole plan. At the end of the document, and I insist that this part is very simple. It's kind of like everything you just read that you were nodding along to, and you were like, yes, I see that. Yes, I need that. I can do all of it for you for this price. And it's really simple and easy. And it makes it so easy for a client to go, oh my God, yes, please, you do it.
That
Please, you do it.
is smart. That's
Thanks.
amazing. I can already see a couple ways that I can do that in my business. So this is valuable, you guys. Definitely rewind this and listen some more because that was really smart. It's kind of like giving them the foundation of your knowledge
Hmm.
that just makes them want to trust you and like, oh, you get my problem, do it.
Oh,
There,
yeah.
that is so effective. I'm sorry, I just had to pause for a second. That's
No,
real
no,
good.
I'm so glad. Yeah, it completely changes the entire dynamic with the client. And I just find that it also uncovers things that the client couldn't have possibly known that they needed help with when they were asking you to write them a proposal. So what I find with my students that I train on this method is that they'll say someone came to me for it was like someone the other day. She said someone reached out to me because they needed a couple of tiny tech help tweaks and I sold them the LP. I sold them the lead product.
Yeah.
We did the deep dive, and now I'm doing a full brand and website for them. A full project, like a completely different thing than they came for. Why? And now, if she hadn't sold the lead product to that person, how could she possibly pitch? She didn't even know that they needed this. She would have just done this dinky little project, and it would have been over. So it's a complete transformation. I think a lot of people are walking around going, where do I find clients that have a budget? And I'm saying, you're talking to them. You're just not putting them through a process where they can see their budget.
Where, yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh. For someone who's just starting a branding agency, what is the first step to branding authority and visibility in their niche?
Well, if you're just starting, I think the first step is actually to go work with people, as many people as possible, as quickly as possible. I think people jump in way too soon to creating content before they even quite know who their niche is, why it's different. The reason, like, there's way too much content out there. We all know AI has made it so that everyone can just, press a button and now they've got all these posts. So it's noise and it's generic and they're not a lot of it isn't saying anything. So if you want to stand out and be actually seen as an authority, a real authority, then you have to know the nuances of your niche and you can't there's no shortcut to that. You have to work with those people to learn and develop those insights. So if you're just starting out, don't worry about content in the beginning is my philosophy. I'm
Agree.
like, work with as many clients as possible and then we can like lay it all out on the table, like tell me about your experiences and then you can build your authority online.
And it's a great way to find out their struggles, their frustrations, their biggest obstacles, because that is your sweet spot for content. So, like,
Yes.
and understanding your ideal client. And when it's a new business, you don't understand your ideal client. And if you don't understand your ideal client or have an idea of who those people are, you're spitting in the wind. Like it's not going to be very effective, I find. So I 100% agree with you on that. I think that's a great idea. All right. What three things have helped you to grow your business? Now, this could be tools, it could be advice, it's anything you want to talk about.
I've grown a couple businesses at this point and along the journey, different things, right?
Yeah.
I think I think the most valuable I think one of the most valuable things I've ever done is it is no longer active, but I took a really in-depth personal growth program. I did a 16-day intensive, my husband and I did, and it was a personal development thing, but I took it and it was not cheap and it was a lot of time, but I took it because my business coach at the time recommended it. And he said, this will help your business. And I mean, I could not agree more. Working on my own, the stories, the fears, like figuring out where the limiting beliefs were, like even learning the tools and getting into practice of noticing those things and questioning them. I think my whole business is what it is because I did and continue to do that work. And
No,
nothing about it was business focused.
no, but knowing yourself enables you to try to avoid the obstacles that you will get yourself into in the way that you work.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Well, I did that right before I published, like the year before I published my book. Actually, what came out of that was I said, okay, I'm going to write this book. And then my face is on the cover of my book. And I would never have put my face on the cover of a book. I hated photos. I would never have put photos anywhere if I hadn't done that program first because I had a lot of fear of being seen and being judged. So imagine, I mean, now people, if you look me up, you'll be like, you don't like photos because it's like photos of me everywhere all the time. But I had to get over this fear in order to do that. And I definitely wouldn't have the business I have right now if I hadn't gotten over that fear.
People buy from people. Any website that doesn't have your photos, like photos of you on it, you're really losing out and you're not standing out. You're not being unique at all. So I'm a photographer too,
I
so I totally get that.
Well, yes, of course. Yeah. So that I would say that's one. That was a long answer for one.
That's all right.
I'll give you two shorter ones. So a book that I really love, probably along the same lines, is The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. Have you
Yes.
ever read? That is like
Yes.
my most recommended book. I just think that's also like in terms of entrepreneurship, just noticing that you're limiting yourself is one of the most important things. And then helped me grow my business. Yeah, it's probably just like a bunch of different people that I've hired over the years. I'm a huge fan of taking programs, working with coaches, working with
Yes.
consultants to get wherever I'm trying to go faster.
It is
And
it is
I
a
just
VIP ticket to the front of the line when you work with a coach, period.
Yeah, and I've spent a lot of money on a lot of different things, some better than others, but I've never felt like a dollar was I've always gotten 10 times the value out of it because even people that I've hired that weren't as, didn't seem as good on the surface, I learned so much from hiring them. I learned so much from seeing what
What you
I didn't
don't
like,
like. Yeah.
yeah, as somebody who runs a training program where I have lots of clients, like all of those experiences inform how I treat people, how I think about the customer experience, because I had maybe a bad experience with this person. I'm like, why
Correct.
was that bad? What didn't I like about that? And how am I going to avoid anybody feeling like that? So I just think you
Yes.
can never go wrong as long as you have your eyes and ears open to learning all the things, not just the thing they're there to teach you, but all the lessons around it.
Exactly. And you have a couple gifts for my audience, which is super exciting. But before we get to those, what share a little bit about what services you offer in case someone's thinking, "Oh my gosh, I need Pia's help."
Well, thank you for asking. So, my company, No BS Agency Mastery, is a training program for 1 to 2 person branding agencies, and we help you scale up to 30K months without employees. So, the best way to just like learn about that is to go to nobsagencies.com/program. And there's like a training on that page. You can just play the video that will give you a really clear picture of our specific model and why we're able to help people do this without employees, because I know it sounds insane.
It does it, but it doesn't when I talk to you. Like, "Oh, okay, I'm
Right.
getting it
Makes
now."
sense.
Yeah, it's a shock value that actually is true. It's
Yeah,
very nice. Okay, great.
it is.
Well, so tell us a little bit about the two little things that you're offering for us.
Yeah, so I recently took the audio feed back from Audible. You can still buy my book on Audible, but I took back the exclusive rights so that I could kind of selectively gift it out. Since you have podcast listeners listening, I figured you guys like audiobooks. So I put my book, Badass Your Brand, The Impatient Entrepreneur's Guide to Turning Expertise into Profit, on a feed for you. It's at nobsagencies.com/strategy academy. And the other thing is, we were just talking about the 50-25-25 rule. So if you're interested, and I explain all of it in the book too, but if you want to plug your own numbers in, I brought the price to freedom calculator. So that's at nobsagencies.com/price.
Love it. Thank you so much for your valuable advice and also your time, because time is money. And if everyone
Thank you.
listening or watching found ideas and tips that you can implement in your business, we would love for you to leave a review on the podcast. Now, go out there and do something good for your business, like snagging both of those gifts from Pia and then taking action. Put some time on your calendar when you get a freebie to actually absorb it and implement it in your business. Getting educated alone will not help your business grow. You have to learn to implement. All right.
Good
Thank
point.
you so much.
Thank you so much, Jen. Appreciate it.